An adopted kid from Albuquerque built the most dominant commercial empire in human history. Not with luck, not with connections, but with a spreadsheet, a used Chevy Blazer, and a level of obsession that genuinely unsettled people in meetings.
Wow.
This is how Jeff Bezos actually did it. 1964. Jackie Bezos is 17, unmarried, and working as a secretary. The baby she delivers, Jeffrey Preston Jorgensen, will one day own a yacht so large it needs its own yacht. But right now, none of that matters. His biological father, a circus performer, exits the story almost immediately. Enter Miguel Bezos, a Cuban immigrant who came to America with almost nothing, married Jackie, adopted Jeff, and gave him both a surname and a blueprint for what relentless work actually looks like. Jeff was unusual from the start. Not just smart, weird smart. The kind of kid who rewired his bedroom door with an alarm so his siblings couldn't interrupt him thinking. At 14, he launched a summer education program for local kids. At his high school graduation, he stood at the podium and announced his dream, to build hotels and amusement parks in space. The crowd applauded politely. A few parents exchanged concerned glances. He went to Princeton. Electrical engineering and computer science. Graduated near the top of his class. Turned down offers from Intel and Bell Labs. He was hunting for something bigger, he just didn't know what yet. Wall Street gave him a taste. He landed at D.E. Shaw, a hedge fund that recruited people the way NASA recruits astronauts, aggressively, selectively, with a strong preference for people who thought differently. By 30, Jeff was senior vice president. He met Mackenzie Tuttle there. She was a novelist and researcher with a sharp mind and apparently a high tolerance for someone who considered spreadsheets a legitimate form of romance. They were engaged within 3 months. Then came the number that changed everything. Bezos was doing research when he encountered a data point that stopped him cold. The internet was growing at 2,300% annually. Not doubling, not tripling, 2,300%. He later described the feeling as staring at a wave from the beach and deciding whether to paddle out or stay dry. He made a list. 20 potential internet business categories. He circled one. Books. The logic was airtight. Millions of titles existed, far too many for any physical store to carry. Books were uniform in size, easy to ship, already cataloged by ISBN. Most importantly, no single retailer dominated the space. It was a wide-open door. His boss, at D.E., Shaw listened to the pitch and told him, calmly, that it was a great idea for someone who didn't already have a great job. Jeff went home, told Mackenzie. She quit her job too. They loaded their car and drove from New York to Seattle, where tech talent and tax advantages waited. Mackenzie drove. Jeff sat in the passenger seat, typing the business plan on his laptop somewhere between the cornfields of Iowa and the mountains of Wyoming. By the time they crossed the Washington state line, Amazon existed on paper. Now they needed to build the real thing. Summer 1994. A rented house in Bellevue. 3 desks made from doors laid across wooden beams. Bezos's way of signaling that every dollar not spent on furniture was a dollar that could feed growth. His parents invested $250,000 from their retirement savings. Mike and Jackie Bezos bet their future on their son's instinct. That fact alone should tell you something about the kind of person Jeff Bezos had become. The company almost had a different name. He originally chose Cadabra until his lawyer heard it as Cadaver over the phone. He nearly went with Relentless. He liked how it sounded. If you type relentless.com today, it still redirects to Amazon. He eventually landed on Amazon because it started with A, showed up early in alphabetical indexes, and matched the scale he had in mind. The Amazon River was the biggest in the world. His store would be the biggest in the world. Simple logic. July 1995. The website launched. The first order came from a friend who was probably guilt-tripped into it. The second came from a stranger in another state. Within 2 weeks, all 50 states and over 40 countries had placed orders. Bezos and his small team were packing boxes on their knees in the garage at midnight. He called it Get Big Fast, not as a slogan, but as a survival strategy. Speed was a competitive moat. In 1997, Amazon went public. The company had never turned a profit. Wall Street analysts invented creative ways to call it doomed. One famously dubbed it Amazon.toast. Bezos responded by writing a shareholder letter that has become required reading in business schools, explaining that Amazon would sacrifice short-term earnings for long-term market position, and that investors who couldn't accept that were welcome to invest elsewhere. The investors who believed him became extraordinarily wealthy people. The late 90s and early 2000s were when Amazon stopped being a bookstore and started becoming something harder to categorize. Customer reviews launched in 1997, a radical concept at the time. Letting buyers publicly criticize products on your own platform seemed like commercial self-sabotage. Bezos saw it differently. Honest reviews built trust. Trust built loyalty. Loyalty built a business that competitors couldn't easily copy. Expansion followed a simple pattern. Wherever Bezos spotted an industry that was inefficient, fragmented, or dependent on information asymmetry, Amazon entered. CDs, DVDs, electronics, toys. Third-party marketplace launched in 2000, inviting external sellers to compete directly on Amazon's platform. Critics thought he was crazy. What he was actually doing was building a data engine. Every product listed, every sale made, every customer behavior tracked, it all fed back into the system. Acquisitions came next. Audible for audiobooks. Zappos for footwear and culture. Kiva Systems for warehouse robotics, because humans require healthcare and bathroom breaks and robots do not. Then, in March 2000, the bubble burst. Amazon stock fell from $107 to $6. Competitors evaporated overnight. Pets.com, Webvan, Cosmo, gone. Headlines called Amazon the next casualty. Inside the company, the energy shifted. Layoffs, budget cuts, side projects shelved. The hyena laugh that echoed through Amazon's offices went quiet. Bezos did not panic. He went cold. Methodical. He cut costs without cutting the core, restructured the logistics network, and doubled down on the infrastructure that would either save the company or go down with it. When the dust settled, Amazon had survived while almost every competitor had not. The crash hadn't weakened them. It had stripped away everything that wasn't essential, and what remained was harder than anything. 2005, Amazon Prime. Unlimited 2-day shipping for $79 a year. Analysts called it financial suicide. Bezos called it a psychological trap. He was right. Prime members didn't just keep shopping on Amazon, they stopped considering whether to shop on Amazon. The decision was already made. You'd paid for the membership. You'd use the membership. A habit had been engineered. Not earned. Engineered. 2007, the Kindle. Amazon went after books again, this time not to sell them but to replace them. The device looked utilitarian. It sold spectacularly. Traditional publishers scrambled. Independent bookstores, already damaged by Amazon's original model, faced a second wave. Amazon had changed the object itself. But the most consequential move happened almost by accident. Amazon's own engineering teams, overwhelmed by the company's infrastructure demands, had built internal tools for scalable cloud computing. In 2006, Bezos quietly made those tools public. Amazon Web Services launched without fanfare, priced like a utility, available to any developer with a credit card. Within a few years, Oz was running Netflix, the CIA, NASA, and thousands of startups. Companies were literally paying Amazon for the computing power that enabled them to compete with Amazon. Bezos hadn't just built a store. He'd built the foundation underneath the entire modern internet. With scale came scrutiny. Third-party sellers began noticing a pattern. Successful products would suddenly face competition from Amazon's own private label versions, lower priced, ranked higher in search, promoted more aggressively. Sellers alleged that Amazon was using their own sales data against them. Amazon called it coincidence. Observers called it something else. Warehouse workers described conditions that sounded less like employment and more like logistics. Productivity quotas tracked by scanner. Bathroom breaks timed. Entire communities built around fulfillment centers that could vanish or downsize without warning. In 2020, for the first time in his career, Bezos testified before Congress. He sat calm and precise before a panel of lawmakers who asked whether Amazon had become too powerful to operate without oversight. He answered each question the way he ran the company, systematically, without unnecessary emotion. 6 months later, he stepped down as CEO. No scandal, no crisis. Just a handoff to Andy Jassy, the man who built Oz, and a quiet exit from day-to-day operations. 27 years after typing a business plan in a moving car, Jeff Bezos was done running Amazon. He'd never really cared about the store, not at the deepest level. Blue Origin, the rocket company he'd been funding since 2000, became his full focus. Reusable launch systems. Lunar landers. Orbital habitats large enough to house millions of people. He began describing Earth as a place of beauty to be preserved by moving heavy industry off-planet entirely. The kid who stood at a high school podium and declared he'd build hotels in space hadn't abandoned that dream. He'd just spent 30 years raising the capital to fund it. Amazon was never the final destination. It was the launch pad. And wherever he's headed next, the world still has absolutely no idea what's about to hit it.